Have you ever stopped to think about just how many dangers lurk in the world? War, famine, illness, they all serve as constant reminders that our time on Earth is finite. But what about the silent, creeping threats we rarely hear about? The ones that slowly inch closer over days, months, or even years until they've settled into your life without you even noticing. Today, we're going to take you to a place where these lesser-known killers aren't hiding in the shadows. They're right in front of you, thriving in plain sight. And ironically, the more we learn about them, the deadlier they seem. We're talking about plants, but not just any plants, a collection so dangerous that you need special permission from the British government just to grow them. So let's explore how one quirky aristocrat combines her love of nature with her fascination with death to create a national tourist attraction. It's a little slice of danger, nestled in the heart of the English countryside. I mean, what's not to love? Welcome to Alnwick Castle and its infamous poison garden. The Duchess says people have always had a macabre fascination with death, and that's certainly evident in the creation of her poison garden. But how did this deadly collection of plants come to be? For that, we can thank the extended royal family. In 1995, Jane Percy became the Duchess of Northumberland, inheriting Alnwick Castle and its surrounding estate. At the time, the land that would become the poison garden was little more than a defunct forest, filled with rows of forgotten Christmas trees. The Duchess's husband, the Duke of Northumberland, Ralph George Algernon Percy, who sounds like he walked right out of a Jane Austen novel, asked her to do something with the area. The Duchess admits the garden idea was born partly out of spite. As she put it, I think he thought, that'll keep her quiet, she'll just plant a few roses, and that'll be it. Little did the Duke know that his offhand remark would lead to one of the most unique and dangerous gardens in the world, drawing tourists from all over. Several factors inspired the Duchess's vision for the poison garden. For one, she has a deep love of nature, as we'll see later. After visiting the world-famous gardens at Villa Medici in Tuscany, with their lush greenery and vibrant plant life set against the rolling Italian hills, she might have thought a similarly captivating garden could thrive in the English countryside. But her fascination with the dark and deadly also played a crucial role. Another key influence was her visit to Sutra Isle, the archaeological site of the largest hospital in medieval Scotland. Just the thought of a medieval hospital without antibiotics or anesthetics is enough to make anyone squirm. For one, don't want to imagine what medieval Scottish bone saws did to what they called patients back then. This morbid curiosity about the past undoubtedly fueled her desire to create something as eerie and as fascinating as the poison garden. The Duchess was evidently so fascinated with these macabre thoughts that she set out to create a garden that perfectly blended her love of nature with her curiosity about all things deadly. To bring her vision to life, she hired renowned landscape architect Jacques Wertz, who had previously worked on the gardens at the French president's residence. By 2005, she had dedicated herself fully to what she calls her life's work, the poison garden. In her view, her interest in deadly plants is completely normal. She even draws comparisons to Victorian children using killing jars filled with laurel, a common hedging plant, to kill insects like spiders and butterflies, leaving their bodies intact. Now, I'm not one to suggest what's normal or abnormal behavior. I mean, I make YouTube videos and often dress like I'm in Miami Vice, but there's definitely a thin line between trapping bugs in poison jars for fun and, say, a future serial killer burning ants with a magnifying glass. The Duchess, of course, is undeterred by such comparisons. She said, most plants that kill are quite interesting, and the story of how plants can cure, I find that pretty boring, really. Much better to know how a plant kills. And she kind of has a point. The poison garden is a unique experience, unlike any other garden you'll ever visit. Who really cares that the bark of a willow tree is a natural source of aspirin? I mean, boring. What truly captivates people is danger, the deadly side of these plants, which is why tourists flock from all over to visit. The Duchess even instructs the garden's tour guides to emphasize the guts and gore of the plants. The front gate doesn't exactly hide what's in store either, with a large skull and crossbones above the entrance and a warning that reads, "These plants can kill," in big, bold letters. Now, if you're unlucky enough to accidentally touch one of these deadly specimens, well, you probably should have paid more attention. Even today, visitors to the poison garden share the Duchess's passion for deadly plants. In an interview with the Smithsonian Institute, one tourist gave perhaps the most British response imaginable when asked why she enjoyed the garden, quoting her, "My fascination is how to murder your husband. Sorry, Jim." But jokes aside, what kind of plants are actually in this garden? And why does the UK government allow so many poisonous and in some cases illegal plants to be housed in one place? Well, let's dig a little deeper, shall we? As you might expect, the plants at the poison garden are strictly off limits. You can look, but touching, not recommended. I mean, poison is in the name for a reason. During a tour, guides will explain how the garden cultivates these plants, their uses in medicinal research and education, and of course their more deadly qualities. According to head tour guide John Knox, every plant in the garden is poisonous. They range from mildly irritating, like stinging nettles that just need gloves, to the deadliest plants which require full hazmat suits to handle. The garden carries out yearly botanical research by cultivating these toxic plants, but at the end of each season, they have to be destroyed for safety reasons. You can't just toss them in the communal compost either. I mean, imagine if someone with bad intentions got a hold of them. Most of these plants are easy to grow with just sunlight and water, so they have to be completely destroyed. After all, they're plants. They could thrive in your garden. In fact, many probably already do. Alnwick Castle hosts many poisonous plants that can also be found growing wild or in people's gardens across the UK. Most folks have no clue about the deadly danger right outside their window, which is why the educational aspect of the garden is quite so important. So, let's meet some of these deadly characters, shall we? First up, there's the Laburnum tree, also known as the golden chain tree, famous for its hanging yellow flowers. The UC ranks it as the second most poisonous tree in the UK, thanks to a toxin called cytosine. Tour guide Dean Smith shared just how dangerous this tree is. He said, if a branch falls and lies on the ground for months, then a dog comes along and picks it up for a walk, there's a good chance that dog won't finish that walk. And as if that's not bad enough, the garden also boasts the most poisonous tree in the UK, the European yew. Just eating a handful of its leaves can be fatal for both humans and animals. And let's not forget rhododendrons, the plant with the flowers your mum loves, but no one can spell. While it's unlikely anyone would manage to eat the leaves, since they reportedly taste awful, if you did, toxins in them would attack your immune system. This can lead to nausea, vomiting, excessive salivation, sweating, a burning mouth, dizziness, and weakness. Basically how you might feel after a curry night. Seriously, don't touch or eat these plants. It's a bad idea. You will regret it. In larger quantities, rhododendron can cause low blood pressure, irregular heartbeat, blurred vision, diarrhea, seizures, coma, and even death. They're so toxic that when several rhododendrons grow together, they poison the surrounding soil to the point that only more rhododendrons can survive there. Even the honey made by bees pollinating these plants has hallucinogenic properties at low doses, so yeah, they're no joke. Next up, we have Prunus lauriceros, or laurel. Its leaves contain cyanide ions and cyanide glycosides. While touching them isn't dangerous as long as you wash your hands afterward, the real danger comes when the plant's parts are mashed or broken down, like if a predator eats them or an unsuspecting gardener trims the hedge. This releases cyanide gas, which can be extremely harmful, especially in enclosed spaces like greenhouses or a car trunk full of hedge clippings. One of the most dangerous groups of plants in the garden is Aconitum, commonly known as monkshood and wolfsbane. These contain aconitine, a toxin that's lethal even in small amounts. You'll find them across southern England and Europe, and unlike some other plants that we've mentioned, these should never be touched, as the toxin can be absorbed through your skin. In significant amounts, aconitine can cause heart problems, muscle weakness, paralysis, and even death. Moral of the story, always research any plant you plan on getting close to. While aconitum doesn't have much use beyond its deadly potential, some plants in the poison garden are ones people still cook with today. We already mentioned stinging nettles, which can make a nice soup when boiled, but another familiar face you might spot in your grandma's garden is rhubarb. The stems are tasty and good for you, but the leaves, not so much. They contain oxalic acid. Yep, that same stuff found in paint stripper. Ingesting that, obviously a bad idea. And fun fact here, during World War I, the British government, unaware of the danger, actually advised the British public to replace cabbage with rhubarb leaves due to wartime shortages. Whoops-a-daisy. But let's move on from the relatively tame rhubarb, shall we? Surely the poison garden has some truly exotic, mega dangerous plants, right? And the answer to that is yes, absolutely. One of the most notorious on display is Dendrocnide morides, better known as the Gimpy Gimpy tree, or more ominously, the suicide plant. Despite the silly name, this plant is no joke. Not only is it poisonous, but it's also venomous. Its tiny hair-like trichomes can embed themselves in your skin with the slightest touch, injecting a venom that causes excruciating pain for weeks or even months. In severe cases, the pain can last for years. Lead tour guide John Knox once described the sting as feeling like being electrocuted and set on fire at the same time. The venom from the gimpy gimpy is chemically similar to scorpion venom, and there are stories of animals like horses stung by this plant throwing themselves off cliffs to escape the agony, hence its grim nickname. It's so dangerous that even in the poison garden, where deadly plants are left out in the open, the gimpy gimpy is kept behind glass. If you're curious about the pain it causes, you don't need to experience it yourself. YouTubers like The Backyard Scientist and Coyote Peterson have documented their encounters with it so you can witness the agony from the comfort of your couch. Thank you, guys. Sure, the gimpy gimpy may cause unbearable pain, but it's not necessarily deadly if you can somehow endure the agony. But if you're looking for something truly life-threatening, let's talk about one of the most lethal poisons on Earth, ricin. This deadly substance comes from Ricinus communis, better known as the castor oil plant. The seeds of this plant contain ricin, one of the most toxic naturally occurring substances. Ingesting even a small amount could lead to nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, diarrhea, and damage to the liver, kidneys, and spleen, culminating in severe or total organ failure. Yes, all of that from a single bean. What's worse, there's no antidote for ricin poisoning. Medical treatment is limited to supportive care, and in the battle between you and ricin, the toxin usually wins. The effects can drag out over several agonizing days. No wonder the Guinness Book of World Records lists the castor oil plant as the most poisonous in the world. In fact, Cornell University reports that just 1 milligram of ricin is enough to kill an adult. But believe it or not, this isn't the deadliest plant in the poison garden. That title goes to a plant responsible for 78,000 deaths annually in the UK alone and over 8 million globally. The ultimate killer? Tobacco. Yes, as we know, smoking kills. But how dangerous are the other plants in the poison garden for those brave enough to visit? Let's find out. A question that undoubtedly comes to mind when people first hear about the poison garden is, well, just how dangerous is it? Well, the answer is actually more complicated than you might think. There's no denying that the plants are dangerous, and it's understandable to be concerned about how some of these toxic plants might inspire individuals with ill intent. Ricin, for example, has been weaponized more than once. In 1978, an umbrella tip coated with ricin was used to assassinate Bulgarian BBC journalist Georgi Markov in what is likely the only recorded umbrella assassination in history. Serial poisoner Graham Young also used plants from the garden, berries from Atropa belladonna, a deadly nightshade, to poison his sister and mother at the age of just 14. That very plant is on display in the poison garden. But in reality, those intent on committing such acts would find a way, poison garden or no. In fact, one of the garden's primary purposes is education, teaching the public about these dangerous plants and researching them to discover potential medicinal benefits. As the staff at the garden will tell you, many of these plants have incredible medicinal properties. Take the yew tree, for instance, which we mentioned earlier as the most poisonous tree in the UK. It can kill a person in just 20 minutes, but it also produces paclitaxel or Taxol, a substance used in breast cancer treatments. Similarly, hellebore, another plant in the garden, was once ground up and given to children in porridge to kill tapeworms. Of course, give too high a dose and you won't have a tapeworm problem, or a child. Perhaps the most compelling example is Madagascar periwinkle, though, a plant with beautiful 5-petaled flowers that are usually white, pink, or violet. Despite its beauty, it's highly toxic to humans and animals, but medicines derived from this plant are powerful cancer treatments. In fact, the head gardener at Alnwick Castle, Trevor Jones, owes his life to it. He was treated for leukemia using a drug derived from this very plant. So, in a rather ironic twist, the poison garden has actually saved more lives than it's taken. Education is a crucial part of the poison garden's mission, helping the public understand what certain plants do, why they're controlled, and just how dangerous they can be. Claire Mitchell, Alnwick Garden's head of community and education, emphasizes the importance of the Duchess's drug education program in the local area. Northumberland, located in the northeast of England, has the highest rate of drug poisoning deaths in any English region for over a decade. To address this, the garden's ABC of Drugs initiative educates visitors on narcotics. The A in ABC stands for opium poppies, classified as a Class A drug. While opium has many pharmaceutical uses in medicines and painkillers, it is also highly addictive and can lead to heroin addiction and overdose. The B is represented by cannabis, a Class B drug, known for its psychoactive effects and tendency to cause the munchies. Cannabis is recreationally legal in some parts of the world, but remains a controlled substance in the UK. The C is for Catha edulis, or cat, a plant native to East Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. Chewing the leaves provides a mild stimulant effect. Plants like cannabis and cocoa, which the garden receives special permission to grow, are kept in metal cages and monitored by 24-hour CCTV surveillance. This level of control reflects the garden's serious approach to educating people about the dangers of these plants, while also highlighting their potential medicinal or cultural significance. I mean, sure, when the royal family runs a program like this, it's educating the public and ensuring safety. But when my mate Dave's trial suddenly is a danger to the community and not allowed to live near schools anymore. I mean, jokes aside though, the narcotic plants in Alnwick Garden provide a unique way for people to learn about drugs in a safe, controlled environment. Visitors get the chance to hear from experts about the dangers of drug use and the importance of treating these substances with the respect they deserve. Moral of the story, everybody, don't do drugs. So, we've covered the plants, their dangers, and even their medicinal benefits. But how dangerous is the garden itself? Do people just show up, accidentally brush against the wrong plant, and keel over on the spot? Well, not exactly. As mentioned earlier, there's never been a fatality at the Poison Garden, which is pretty impressive. Visitors are given safety briefings before each tour, and groups are kept small with a maximum of 20 people, so guides can keep a close eye on everyone. Plus, there are staff on hand at all times, whether it's the tour guides or other staff members. So if you decide to visit, you're really in good hands. Now, while no one has died at the Poison Garden yet, you definitely don't want to be the one to win that Darwin Award. The garden is still a dangerous place, and there are, on average, several fainting episodes each year. In a 2023 TikTok, head tour guide John Knox revealed that there have been 130 fainting incidents that year alone, along with 11 cases of projectile vomiting and 2 ambulance calls. It's called the Poison Garden for a reason. However, Knox was quick to point out that this isn't as alarming as it sounds. By that point in the year, 61,000 people had visited, so your odds of something like this happening were only about 0.02%. And if it does happen, the staff will handle it. Tour guide Tom Patterson mentioned in 2023 that when someone faints, they get a little star placed on their shoulder, a badge of honor that probably makes them feel extra special in the most cringeworthy way possible. British people are famous for not wanting to stand out, so you can imagine the internal mortification of such public attention. Knox proudly mentioned that at least up to 2023, no tour guide had fainted, suggesting that those working there must be equipped with some essential skills, perhaps common sense being one of them. Patterson also noted that things have gotten much safer over the years. In an October 2023 article, it was reported that only one person had fainted that year, a significant drop compared to earlier years. Patterson, with a nod to the Duchess's dark sense of humor, mentioned that this improvement might not be entirely positive. The Duchess had actually wanted people to faint, as it served as a shocking reminder of the real danger these plants pose. Walking through gates marked with skull and crossbones, knowing you could be one to get that star on your shoulder, has a way of making visitors take the plants seriously, at least most of them. The Poison Garden at Alnwick has several interesting elements that go beyond the plants themselves. Alnwick Castle, where the Poison Garden is located, is famous in its own right. It served as a partial setting for everyone's favourite wizarding school, Hogwarts. If you remember the scenes where Harry and friends learn to ride broomsticks or where Harry plays Quidditch, those were filmed right on the castle's grounds. It's also where Harry and Ron crash Mrs. Weasley's car into the Whomping Willow. The irony isn't lost. Alnwick is both the backdrop for dangerous fictional plants and home to very, very real ones. Talk about full circle. But what if magic and wizards aren't your thing? Prefer to experience the world in a more natural way? Well, the Poison Garden may still have something for you. While most of the plants are too dangerous to be touched without gloves or even hazmat suits, for a lucky few, there's a very unique experience. The Duchess of Northumberland hosts a nudist day for members of British naturism, where visitors can take a tour of the garden in the buff, led by the Duchess herself, who participates. Now, I don't know about you, but poisonous plants, and let's call them dangling bits, don't seem like a good mix to me. Any man brave enough to bear or within the proximity of a gimpy plant is made of stronger stuff than me. But that's the Poison Garden, a place that truly has something for everyone. If, of course, everyone means people who enjoy the thrill of being surrounded by deadly plants. Alnwick Garden is, in its own small way, a wonder of the world. Nowhere else in the heart of the British countryside can you brush so close to death while having a pleasant stroll. Most dangerous places are fast-paced and high stakes, but at Alnwick, you can take your time, pay death a visit, and enjoy a cup of tea. And really, is there anything more British than that? Just be careful with the berries. Thanks for watching.